Howdy, Michael, the Mercedes guy here, and we're going to talk about jumper cables. Now, you should always have a set of jumper cables in your car, not only to help yourself, but maybe to help other people. And you want to spend good money on them. You don't want to buy cheap ones. Basically, cheap ones have a smaller diameter wire inside, and it's harder or maybe even impossible to start a car with the cheap ones because it won't carry the amperage. You need about 200 amps for your starter. That's a big wire. Now, as jumper cables get old, here is the wire coming in. It's crimped right here and then riveted onto the actual part that carries the juice. This actually doesn't carry much juice because the juice would have to be going through the hinge pin. This is where most of the juice is going to be going through to your battery. Now, so what you want to do when cables get old is to use a hammer and a punch and crimp this both ways to make a better connection there, and then also give this rivet a couple of whacks with a hammer and a punch. That will ensure that you have good conductivity. So, it helps to have an assistant hold this open. Then you use a punch, and I use a nice big sled to recrimp these items. Okay, we have re-riveted and recrimped with the hammer and punch. Now what I'm going to do is use my wire wheel and get these connections nice and clean. You want to have protected lenses whenever you're around a grinder or a wire wheel, and better yet, a face shield when you're doing this kind of stuff. You never stand in line. These things come out of there. And if you're grinding, you never stand in line. Not only can pieces come off, but wheels have been known to disintegrate. There's people actually had some pretty serious injuries. So you always stand to one side. Now this guy here is nothing to worry about. Otherwise I'd be standing over here. But we're going to buff these up. Alrighty, now the next step is to take some oil and just dab on these teeth, and that way it will kind of seal them so that they don't corrode as fast. Because after all, you're going to put your jumper cables in the trunk, and of course in wintertime the trunk's going to be damp. So make sure we got a little bit of coating on there. Now, to test a battery, you can use a voltmeter. A fully charged battery should read about 13.6 volts. That's for what's called a 12-volt battery. Another way to test is with jumper cables. Now, a discharged battery will be giving off hydrogen gas, very explosive. So whenever you're working around a battery, you want to have protective lenses, plus you want to determine where the vents are. I can see there's a vent right there, and there's a vent right there. So you want to take a rag a damp rag and cover those vents. Let's see if this rag's going to be long enough. There we go. Because whenever you're messing with the battery, there could be a spark. If a spark jumps over here, it can blow the top of the battery right off. And I've seen it happen twice. And you can, if you go online, you can hear of other instances. Now, I've already done a tutorial on how to jump start safely to avoid a spark. So be sure and check out that particular YouTube video. Now, to test the battery with jumper cables, you make sure those clamps are a foot or more apart. Then you can hook your clamps on, wiggle them a little bit to make for a real good connection. Then, a ways away from the battery, we're going to make a spark. Now that's a healthy battery. That's a real healthy battery. Just from experience. If you aren't getting much of a spark, your battery's dead. Okay, for storing your jumper cables, take a piece of rope, tie it on like so, then wind up your cable. Then tie this. And you're all set to go down the road, so it doesn't get so tangled up.